Tiger, how did he come out of that game?
He's sore. He's got a bruised hip, but he's moving around. You know, hopefully he can get enough work in and not take a shot on it. You know, it's just, those type of things are funny. You know, we had a guy out with one earlier for a week, but it's just kind of how you're built and where your bruise is too.
Do you see him playing in tomorrow? This is
I
kind
hope
of
so.
day-to-day.
I hope so.
How's Ken's redshirt season come along with the development?
You know, it's tough because you don't know because you don't get to see his progression, you know, other than in practice. And you know, the way we do things, you know, you practice a lot early. Now our practices are very short, you know, so you're going 3 hours early. Now you're going an hour and a half, and you're throwing in some scouting as part of that game prep, which is hard for him to be a big part of. But he does a lot of individual workouts, so we work him out a lot. He does more with Wes, his agility, and you know, Coach Savino does a lot of individuals with him. So like because the other guys are trying to keep him fresh and ready, but you don't have to worry about that with him. So like he'll work out after we're done. But it's tough to see, you know, gauge progression.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. With Sharif leaving, is there any thought to maybe throwing him into the mix, or you feel like you got enough front court depth there?
Yeah, I would always, you know, I think you got to do what's best for your players. You know, I don't think that would be right for him. I know football does that stuff. It's a different animal, right? You cover it, right? They take, you know, just a different animal. I just wouldn't think that way. Wouldn't, you know, tried to do what was right for his career when we sat down and talked, and you know, just because of a different situation, you know, I don't think that I wouldn't operate that way, just personally. You know, I think you got to. I think if you do what's best for a guy's career, it'll come back to you tenfold in the long run.
He was like the effort for you guys, your scout team against Washington. Has he kind of done that so far with other teams?
Oh no, yeah, Kenny's a great guy. Yeah, he's a big, strong guy. Agility is his issue. That, and he hadn't played a lot of basketball, so two things, like court awareness would be like reaction time, anticipation, because he hadn't played a lot of basketball. That and foot speed, quickness. You know, he's a top-heavy guy. You know, if I was built like Kenny, I'd probably just hang out in Venice Beach with no shirt on all day. But you know, so he's so top-heavy, so strong up top, but his legs aren't. So we got to be able to get him. You know, his footwork, his agility, and his leg strength.
The Oregon game seemed like it was kind of a confluence of factors. Do you just kind of write that off as maybe a one-game blip and try to get back to what you were doing defensively before?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, you got to. Every games are different. Each game, you could sit there and say, well, they didn't do this game. Well, you're playing somebody different.
Yeah.
So matchups are everything.
Yeah.
And then what happens within a game affects it. An injury, their shot making spreads you out. Now you can't beat them off the dribble. People are afraid to help because they're making every shot. So that's why, you know, you see teams, you can see teams and you say, well, they beat them 20. They play them 2 weeks later and the other team wins because the game factors are different. But you always have to try to learn. I think, you know, as a coach, what did I not get done to make sure our guys could handle the pressure of the moment? You know, what they were going to throw at us. So you always, you know, whatever it may be, how do you do a better job? How to make sure your team improves and learn from it. So yeah, I never just throw it in the garbage and move on. You always got to try to learn. Even if you win by 30, you got to try to look in and learn. Okay, you know, ignore the score. Where do we need to improve?
Colorado's another kind of veteran savvy team.
Oh, they are a veteran.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a veteran team, deep team. You know, I think they're the blueprint for recruit a bunch of guys that are good players, work with them, keep them together. When they get older, you will win. And that's their key. You know, you recruit a bunch of good players, and now they're juniors, seniors, and they're an NCAA tournament team, top 25 team.
So is this in a way blueprint, especially for a guy like Tiger, to just, see what you can become in 3 or 4 years?
I think it'd be nice if everybody looked at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Fans, Tiger, and probably the other 700 guys in Division One that transfer. I mean, at 900 last year. I mean, it is what it is. It's that's the world we live in now, though. But yeah, sure. I mean, you look around college basketball. Colorado's a great example. You can look at other. You look at guys all around. Look who they are now versus who they were. I always tell guys, my buddy Kenyon Martin lives in Calabasas. I used to work him out in a back gym because he didn't even get in practice his freshman year. He hardly got in practice. I mean, he got mop-up minutes, if any, his freshman year. They have to get him extra workouts in a back gym. 3 years, 4 years, he wins all 7 National Player of the Year awards. So there's no better example than that guy. And not only did he win all those awards, he was the first pick in the NBA draft. He made over $115 million in his career. I had to get the guy workouts because he couldn't even hardly get in practice as a young assistant. So there's a million examples of it. It's just hard, this day and age. Back then, though, Kenyon Martin didn't have social media. Probably he didn't even have a phone, and didn't have to feel the weight of the world on how he's underachieving. So it's what's made coaching different, so different. You got to make sure, like, when you got young guys, it's like, we're not going to be young forever. So yeah, Colorado's a great example.
And then for Tiger to go, I know he was limited the other game, but having to go Peyton Pritchard to McKinley Wright, that's tough.
Yeah, well, I mean, welcome to high major basketball in the Pac-12. There's usually great guard play, and the history of guard play, not just at UCLA in the Pac-12, back obviously the Pac-10 to the Pac-8 days. I mean, the history of guard play in this league is second to none. So it's just really kind of business as usual.
Speaking of guards,
I would just throw it like he started off the league, Quade Green, who was having an unbelievable year, and then Bonton, who's having a great year.
Yeah.
They may not have the names of, Peyton, Pritchard, McKinley Wright, but I mean, be hard pressed. Thompson's having a great year at Oregon State. You're hard pressed to find a game where somebody's doesn't have a really, really good guard.
Speaking of guards, Jayce Kaiman seems to be continuing his kind of upward trajectory here. What's gone into that? How pleased have you been with that?
Yeah, I think Jake's, he and Jaime, for freshmen have really shown that they can play. The problem is we need them to play like veterans, and they're not. So it's hard for them to sustain it. I worry about Jaime wearing down. I've asked him to do so much. Jake, on the other hand, isn't probably as beat up as Jaime. The one thing about Jake is he believes in himself. He believes in himself. My thing with Jake is just got to get him to where he commits a few fouls on defense. That means he's trying to stop a layup, trying to take a charge. He's never going to be a defensive stopper. But get in there and find a way to get a loose ball rebound. But there's all growth for him, And then I have to always remind him he's more than a three-point shooter. He's a great passer. He's got a nice pull-up game as well when he plays off his shot fake. So I have to, as his coach, remind him, you don't have to make threes to stay in the game.
When you have a guy like that who's not a great one-on-one defender, do you try to adopt them into a team defender, maybe foul guys toward others?
Well, Jake does a good job staying in front of the ball.
Okay.
Because a lot of that is strategy, where you're positioning defensively and how to cut somebody off. It's more mental than physical at times. He does a really good job with the mental part of that.
With the need for more offense, you just talked about Jayce Kaiman, but also David Singleton, both 50% in the last game. Are you giving them a little bit more free reign to find those open threes?
I never didn't give him free reign. So I can promise you that. One thing I've never did is tell a guy not to make shots. You just got to take open shots. Take bad shots, you're not going to make shots. Doesn't matter who you are.
Do you see confidence growing in both of them? Are you feeling more comfortable with how they're progressing?
Yeah, but it's funny. People always say you got to give them confidence, but if you've ever played golf and you start missing 3-foot putts, it's hard to stand over the fourth one confident if you miss 3 in a row. You're standing over the fourth one thinking, man, I hope this goes in. I can't deal with this if I miss another one. It's tough. So, as a coach, I've always, my guy, one thing they'll tell you is I'm hard on them about paying attention, things that matter. Pay attention, do what you're being coached to do. Make sure you give great effort, play with toughness. We never talk about missed shots. We talk about why didn't you take it? So they know me when it comes to that. I'm into shot. I'm not into with the shooters, you don't get into the result. The result's irrelevant. Shot selection, but shot preparation. And I think, with young guys that, like again, Dave was out of shape. Dave was thrown into the fire when he got cleared to play. The season started. The guy was immobile for months on a scooter. The way that it would hit his broken foot rehab went. So it's been a tough year for him. Just trying to get himself back to normal, the way he runs, all that stuff. So conditioning factors into shooting.
What did you notice was the biggest difference when Tiger was on the court versus when he wasn't at the end of the organization?
He only played 5 minutes.
Not the whole season though. Do you know the difference when he's there and when he's not?
At times, again, I said this early, I think he's a freshman, so sometimes he's effective, and then other times he's tired. And there's times where fatigue gets him, because and I said earlier, you have to play a freshman too long, it's going to be hard for him to maintain it. There's very, very few guys can play. Like McKinley Wright almost never comes out, but that wasn't the case for him as a freshman at Colorado. So, I think when Tiger's in there and he's fresh and he's playing well, we're a better offensive team because he can create some things for his teammates.
Coach, obviously LA lost like a basketball legend this week in Kobe Bryant. How have you and the team been reacting to that?
I think it's important to remember that 9 people were lost. It's tragic. So it's hard for everybody. You got young kids that lost their hero. When you're, I have a 13-year-old at home, so I have to address it with her as well. It's hard. Our guys are old enough that they've probably been through some loss in their life, but forces everybody to reflect in who they are, what they're doing with their own life, their own relationships. It's a lot for like my daughter to process. She sees a picture in my office of Kobe and I. She's worried. It's a great thing about having a daughter. She's worried about if I'm okay. But it's just tragic for the entire city. It's just horrible. It's just, there is no way. There's nothing. Nobody knows what to say. It's you wake up and it's still, did that really happen? That's the mode I'm still in. You read all the stuff, you go through all of it, and then every day I'm reading, the whole helicopter situation. And you wake up the next day and you're driving. It's like, did that happen? Did it really even happen? So I think a lot of people are still in that mode. But being new to being here a lot and always being since I knew him and being a huge fan and rooting for him every game. But being new to LA, not a shock to me. How devastated the entire city is. It's pretty obvious. Being from Cincinnati, I told my dad, I said, it would have been like Pete Rose passing away at 41. That's why I was describing it to some people back there.
Last question.
Coach, you're 20 games in. How have you adapted to coaching at UCLA, living on the West Coast, the conference scheduling pattern? I don't think it's much different from Cincinnati.
Well, we're going to 20 games next year, if you guys didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I love being here. I don't have any harbor any look backs at all. I knew what I was getting into. I knew it was going to be a rebuilding situation. I've done this before, but I love being here. Absolutely, the school's it's really a magical place. It really is. I know I sound like going into my recruiting spiel right here, but my daughter loves her school. Campbell Hall's awesome. I have a lot of friends here. Like I said, it was part of my move. So, for me though, I've had a charmed life for a while, having some, especially in my last 3 years, winning 89 games. You know, so, but that's, you know, that's not, if you have to be mature enough to know, I mean, you're going to go through things, you know. So, yeah, you know, you got to deal with it in different ways, and you're dealing with your team now, what you want your team to look like in the future. So you got two different jobs, you know, you're recruiting, you're planning, but also staying in the moment with your guys right now, because what we're doing right now is extremely important.